What do you think is the most influential contract on the entire planet? I'll bet it's one you've agreed to hundreds, maybe even thousands of times without ever reading a single word. Yeah, I'm talking about the terms and conditions. So today, we're going to decode the TNCs for a popular gaming site to find out what rules we've all unknowingly agreed to play by.
Okay, let's be real for a second. When you see that little checkbox that I have read and agree to the terms and conditions, do you actually read them? Yeah, I didn't think so. We all just click agree and move on. But that one tiny click, it's a legally binding contract.
You could say that click is probably the biggest lie on the internet. We all say we've read it, but we haven't. And just like that, we're agreeing to this hidden rulebook that dictates our entire experience on that site. So let's pull back the curtain on the terms and conditions for NK Games Web and see what we've really been signing up for. All right, so every good contract, or really any game for that matter, has to start by defining the players. So before we dive into the really juicy stuff, let's see how this document sets the stage and tells us who's agreeing to what. Because this isn't just some user guide, it's a formal agreement.
It's actually pretty simple. You, or the client, well, that's you, the person using the website. And we, us, or the company, is NK Games Web. The second you land on their site and start clicking around, you're in the game, and you're accepting their terms. Bottom line, it's their house, their rules.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Ownership. When you're on a website that's just packed with games and articles and all this cool stuff, who actually owns it all? And, maybe more importantly, what happens to the stuff that you create? The second you start engaging, the rules of intellectual property kick in.
So when it comes to their content, the games, the art, the text, the rules are crystal clear. You get a license to use it for your own personal enjoyment. But that's it. You can't go and republish their material on your blog, you definitely can't sell it, and you can't even copy and paste it somewhere else. All those intellectual property rights, they belong to them.
So you can't use their stuff. Fair enough. But what about your stuff? What happens when you post a comment or write a review? This is where the agreement takes a fascinating turn. Because the moment you hit post, ownership, well, it gets complicated.
Whoa. Okay, let's break down what this legalese actually means. By posting a comment, you are giving NK Games Web a license to do pretty much whatever they want with it. They can use it, they can copy it, they can edit it, and they can even let other companies use it in any format that exists now or in the future forever. And they don't have to pay you a dime. Your words just became their asset. Okay, so they own their content and they get a license for yours. What's next in the rulebook? Well, now we get to the part about your conduct. This section lays out exactly what you're promising to do and not do while you're on their turf. Think of it as your responsibilities as a player in their game. Basically, every time you post a comment, you're making a few legal promises. You're guaranteeing that you have the right to post it, that you're not ripping off someone else's work, that you're not saying anything illegal or offensive, and that you're not just there to advertise something. And here's the kicker. If you break that promise and the company gets sued because of your comment, the legal responsibility, it's all on you. And get this, there are even rules about who can link back to their website. Big players like search engines or news outlets, they can link freely. But if you run a smaller community site, a law firm, or even an educational project, you technically need to get written permission first. They're really controlling how their brand is presented across the entire web. All right, now for my favorite part. This is where the company puts up its legal force field. Think of it like they're activating invincibility mode, building a wall of defenses to protect themselves from pretty much anything that could possibly go wrong. First up, a huge one, they reserve the right to change the rules of the game at any time. This reservation of rights clause means they can just amend these terms whenever they want, so the contract you agree to today might be totally different tomorrow, and guess what? It's on you to stay updated. This right here, this is their main shield, their big disclaimer. Let's walk through it. 1. They don't guarantee that any information on the site is correct. 2. They don't promise the website will even be online when you want to use it. 3. If you click a link that takes you to another website, they're not responsible for what you find there. And the big one, 4. As long as the site is free to use, they are not legally liable for any loss or damage you might experience. Shield up.
Phew, okay. We've gone through who the players are, the rules of ownership, your duties, and their massive legal shield. So, when you boil it all down, what's the core bargain? What is the actual deal you're making every single time you click agree? It really comes down to this simple trade-off. On one hand, You get free access to a ton of games and content. In return, you give the company a wide-ranging license to use your comments, you accept that you can't reuse their content, and you agree that they have very, very limited legal responsibility. It's a transaction, plain and simple. And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? You get hours of free entertainment, but in exchange, you're giving away rights to your own words and letting a company off the hook from most problems. Now that you know the hidden rules of the game, do you think it's a fair trade? And what about all the other unread contracts you agree to every single day?